The first time the earth bucked under my feet, I was 8, holding my mother's hand in the Plaza de la Nieve at 1514. The statue of the city's founder shivered, pigeons turned into a sudden silver cloud, and the ground delivered a shudder as precise and brief as a drum roll. We shrieked, laughed, dusted ourselves off. No buildings cracked, no one died. The second day it happened again. Same plaza, same clock face, ticking past the same second. By the end of the week, the seismologists blankly admitted they had no explanation except the numbers. A 3.2 magnitude quake, 61 seconds long, hitting Arroyo City every afternoon at 1514 AH, then vanishing as abruptly as it arrived. By the time I was grown enough to know desire and disappointment, the quake, as we'd come to call it, had turned life into a series of 61-second exclamation points. The city's economy, its nightlife, even its crimes adapted around that daily shiver, as though the earth itself rang a bell to change shifts. An entire etiquette evolved. You scheduled first kisses for 1513 if you wanted the tremor to mask your awkwardness, or 1515 if you preferred steady ground. You moved porcelain before 15 hours, locked display cases, installed seismic latch cabinets. The quake was reliable, impartial. The rest of us became just as reliable, calculating whole futures between its tremors. My profession emerged from that certainty. I'm an interval broker. I buy and sell the minutes on either side of the quake for clients who need them. Lovers seeking the exact second their heart beats will match the city's pulse. Thieves wanting the short-lived power flickers in older neighborhoods. Politicians timing scandalous leaks when everyone's phones jump from the vibration. I move those minutes like real estate, parceling 15-second slivers with the paperwork of a futures trader. If you've got 20 grand, I can guarantee the silence between 15:15:4 and 15:15:15 in Quadrant West, when traffic lights hiccup and cameras reboot. That window has been used for everything from marriage proposals to jailbreaks. I rent an office on the 7th floor of the Agarico building, a pre-quake edifice whose old bones have learned the daily sway. On Tuesday mornings, my secretary Leah runs predictive models, shading our calendars in red and green bands of desirability. On Thursdays, the crooks come in, smelling of contempt and cheap antiseptic, wanting me to shave microseconds off fees. Most days, I don't ask what they'll do with the interval. That ignorance is part of the service, a cushion for my conscience. One Thursday in late October, Leah buzzed me to say a Mr. Gavilan had arrived with a special request. Special requests often meant violence, but his name rang an old bell. I opened the door and nearly swallowed my own list of sins. It was Fabian Gavilan, the boy who'd held my free hand during that first tremor when I was 8 and he was 9, both of us tethered to laughing mothers. I hadn't seen him in 15 years. He looked wind-struck, all sharp cheekbones, a wool coat too thin for the season. "Estella," he said, smiling the way people do when they remember the smell of childhood bread. "I heard you're the person to speak to about timing." I poured coffee. He didn't wait for it to cool, and his lips flinched as they burned. "I need the 60 seconds after tomorrow's quake." "That entire window is already leased," I told him, flipping to the chart. "Quadrant East by Galvez Security. Maintenance tests. I could maybe carve you 10 seconds. I need all 60. "For what?" "Justice," he said, without irony. I leaned back. "Justice is expensive, Fabian." He took a folded sheet from his coat. It was a police report, just 12 hours old. His sister, Mariela, 29, had been found in her apartment, wrists bound, pulse stopped. Death between 15:14:05 and 15:16 hours during yesterday's tremor. The coroner's guess was suffocation. No forced entry, No suspects. Cameras had blinked off at 15:14 too. Lights flickered. Neighbors assumed the thuds were Quake-related. Classic Quake murder. He tapped the signature at the bottom. The killer knew the city's blind spot. Tomorrow, in those same 60 seconds, he means to do it again. To another woman. I have a name. He slid a photograph of a man in a tuxedo, stepping out of a limousine. Arcadio Mina, gala philanthropist, owner of 2 casinos, rumored to launder money through charities. I'd heard of Mina. He was a legendary collector of intervals, buying seconds the way others buy horses. Not because he needed them, but because most people sold to him, and not to the police. A private empire of time shapes, used for duplicity and spectacle. Witnesses claimed Mina once proposed to his 5th wife by projecting holographic fireworks during the quake when the city's real fireworks were banned for fear of triggering landslides. He was as dangerous as he was punctual. Go to the police, I said. They can't touch him. He owns 3 precinct captains. Besides, tomorrow is the only provable window. After that, Mina will change tactics. 60 seconds, Estella. I need them cleared, please. There are flavors of desperation you don't refuse. The memory of our first quake together weighed on my tongue like unfinished sugar. I told Leah to cancel Galvez security at a steep late change penalty, then sold Fabian the 61 seconds for 1 peso. My cheapest interval ever. The next 24 hours felt like a prolonged tectonic pause. I didn't sleep. I spent the night digging through purchase ledgers to see how many intervals Mina controlled around tomorrow's quake. Too many. He owned the minute before, the 10 minutes after, half the city's surveillance grid. He could snuff out candles while the rest of us watched reruns in the dark. At 14:30 the following day, clouds stacked over the hills like gray anvils, I met Fabian outside La Cupola, Mena's mountain estate, all marble courtyards and genetically engineered roses. 21 minutes left. I checked my phone. Citywide traffic had been detoured away from the mountain by spontaneous construction, a common Mina tactic. He'd vacuumed the map clean of witnesses. Where's your weapon? I asked. Fabian lifted his coat to reveal nothing but a stethoscope. I'm not here to kill him. I'm here to record a confession. I frowned. He won't talk. He will. He likes an audience. And if not, he patted the device's recorder. This will catch what silence knows. We hopped the sidewall. 40 seconds later, we were inside the green maze leading to the ballroom terrace. At 13:30, the courtyard looked abandoned, save for garden lamps blinking awake too early. The quake would hit in 30 seconds. For a moment, I thought we'd miscalculated. Then Mina emerged, smoothing his cuffs, walking beside a woman in a red dress whose face I couldn't see. They stopped near a fountain, whose water had been drained for earthquake safety. A predictable place to stage an unpredictable act. I glanced at the sky. 15:13:50. The air tasted of copper wire and thunder. I pressed a receiver into Fabian's hand and whispered, "Whatever happens, pull her away first." He nodded once, then stepped forward, calm as an usher. "Senor Mina," he called. Mina turned, surprised. The woman flinched. She was younger than I, maybe 21, face powdered to royal stillness. But her eyes flicked from Mina to Fabian, calculating which man might prove the greater threat when the ground began to shake. "Who invited you?" Mana said, voice smooth as watered silk. "Mariela Gavilan's brother," Fabian answered. The name landed like a plate dropped from height. The woman's mouth parted. Mina's shoulders stiffened, one foot sliding backwards in a fencer's stance. He tapped his wristwatch. 15:13:58. I felt the first subterranean rattle in my knees at 15:14 OA. A tremor like applause rolled up the columns. Fabian lifted the stethoscope to Mina's chest. The move was so absurd, Mina froze. The quake roared, glass chimed, pebbles jittered, and Fabian leaned close. "Tell me what her last words were," he shouted above the din. Mina laughed. The cufflinks on his sleeves glinted. "You want poetry, Hermano?" She said nothing. She tried, but the tape. His eyes widened. The stethoscope, I realized, was wired to a miniature amplifier strapped under Fabian's coat. Its speaker turned to maximum. Mina's admission thundered louder than the quake. Every microphone in the neighborhood, including the emergency PA that automatically engaged during tremors, caught those words. She said nothing. She tried, but the tape. I felt the crawl of adrenaline like a second quake inside my ribcage. Mina lunged. The woman screamed. Fabian dodged. The amplifier cracked on stone, still recording. I sprinted forward, grabbed the woman's wrist, and yanked her away, just as the final shutter faded at 15:15:01. The world stilled. Leaves whispered. Our phones blinked awake. Somewhere downtown, the automatic caption feed of the Quake safety broadcast repeated Mina's confession in glowing letters. He saw it reflected in a glass door. She tried, but the tape. Sirens howled, distant but gaining. The city had heard. Time between quakes is ordinary time, which makes it slippery and cruel. In the ensuing days, the story rinsed through Arroyo City like red dye in water. The police, shamed by public fury, arrested Mina within an hour. Fabian's amplifier had caught not only the confession, but the specific method: duct tape, rope, chloroform. 5 unsolved murders linked overnight. My brokerage received 7 subpoenas, which Leah laminated for novelty. The district attorney wanted to know how I had acquired the minute after the quake. So did several rival kingpins, but public opinion was briefly on my side. The city hailed me and Fabian as vigilante statisticians delivering data-driven justice. Fabian didn't celebrate. When reporters asked how he felt, he said, "Like the earth moves, but my sister still doesn't." He then left for the coast. For a while, I tried to resume normal commerce of minutes, but something had changed in the marketplace. The quake, once a harmless metronome, was now a crime scene. My phone rang with 2 relentless choruses, lovers wanting to propose during the tremor, as if baptizing themselves in romance's chaos, and more ominously, people seeking private corrections, a phrase meaning revenge. Everyone had a plan that hinged on 1514. 2 months later, a letter arrived from the National Geological Service. They planned to install dampers in the crust beneath the city to diffuse kinetic energy, hoping to end, or at least randomize, the quake. Businesses applauded. Couples wailed. My brokerage would be obsolete. The night the dampers were scheduled, Fabian called from a payphone. The sea's hush drummed behind him. Tonight at midnight they flipped the switch. I know. Does it scare you? Yes, I admitted. I was terrified, not just for my livelihood, but for the city's strange equilibrium. We'd built cathedrals of routine on that 61-second certainty. Remove it, and what happens to the architectural flourish of our lives? Then meet me where it began, he said. Plaza de la Nieve, 2359. I hadn't stood in that plaza after dark in years. Snow machines dusted artificial flakes over tourists who paid to experience winter in a subtropical climate. The statue of the founder was draped in lights that changed from sapphire to blood red. Fabian waited by the old sundial, coat pockets shoved deep. They say the dampers will either cancel the quake or make it unpredictable, he murmured. Either way, no more scheduling crimes. Or kisses, I added. He watched a fleck of synthetic snow fall on his cuff. Do you think we'll know who we are without it, Estella? I thought of all the charts in my office, colored blocks of people's hopes labeled in seconds. I thought of Mariella's final minute. I glanced at Fabian, who had placed his life's greatest gamble on a single sliver of geologic punctuation. Yes, I said, surprising myself. We just won't be so neat about it. The clock in the plaza struck 00. Somewhere below, engineers toggled a switch the size of a live grenade. I held my breath. Fabian angled his face skyward as if waiting for rain. 1 second. 2. 10. Nothing. The ground stayed still as I held tongue. A collective sigh rippled among the late-night onlookers. Then, at 0011, the earth bucked, a brief, savage jolt, stronger than any quake before. Snow machines toppled. The statue groaned. Lights blinked out. Screams unfurled across the plaza like torn fabric. I reached for Fabian's hand instinctively. Instead of pulling away, he squeezed. We counted together. An old reflex, ticking off the seconds until the tremor ceased at exactly those 0112. 72 seconds, not 61. A new number, a new uncertainty. It moved, he whispered. Yes, I said, heart hammering. And it'll move again. But maybe not when we ask. The power rebooted. Sirens whooped. News drones buzzed overhead. I wondered how many deals were being rewritten in real time. The city's black market calendars would dissolve like sugar. All that tidy wickedness forced into improvisation. Fabian brushed debris off his coat. What will you do? I examined my palms, raw from gripping his. Maybe keep selling time. Just not pretend I own it. Call myself a guide rather than a broker. I shrugged. Or maybe plant roses. Something that lets the ground do its work without me plotting it. And love. His voice smaller now. That, I smiled, has never obeyed my charts. In the weeks that followed, tremors came at odd hours. Dawn, midnight, once during the mayor's inauguration luncheon. Scientists groped for patterns. Poets wrote manifestos about chaos reclaiming its throne. Crime spiked at first, then dipped as criminals realized unpredictability made planning messy. Lovers, free of the city's choreographed romance, improvised kisses on buses and in bakeries, shrugging if the floor lurched. I closed the brokerage, turned half the office into a cooperative workspace for out-of-work interval hustlers. We pooled skills. One became a disaster drill trainer, another a sound engineer capturing tremor harmonics for ambient albums. I published a slim book titled Elastic Seconds about our dependence on predictability, and it sold maybe 200 copies, all to academics studying post-Quakes sociology. Fabian returned, suntanned, eyes less flammable. We met every few days with no calendar prompts, learning the awkward thrill of spontaneity. We took walks atop a ridge notorious for landslides, telling each other stories we never scheduled to tell. Sometimes the earth stirred, and we steadied each other without glancing at watches. One afternoon, as we sat on the ridge sharing peaches, he asked if I missed the old quake. I peeled fruit skin into curls before answering. I missed the clarity of certain seconds, I confessed, but not what people did with them. He nodded. Clarity's overrated if cruelty gets there first. Below us, the rebuilt neighborhoods glistened. Without their daily alarm, people learned to check on elderly neighbors, not because the ground warned them, but because maybe kindness could be its own timer. Cafes offered discounts during random tremors, calling them shiver specials. Kids kept earthquake diaries, turning fear into literature. The city, demechanized of its predictable pulse, stumbled into a kind of ragged humanity. On our 6-month not anniversary, neither of us knew the exact date we'd first kissed. We returned to the plaza. No statues of founders now. It had been replaced with a sculpture of concentric rings designed to wobble safely. We sat on the outer ring, balancing like children on a seesaw, when an unexpected quake riffled the ground. Laughter erupted around us. Fabian's eyes lit with that same reckless wonder he'd had at 9 when the pigeon wing beats thundered the sky. "I love you," he said, not waiting for a specific second. I laughed through a jerk of ground, looped my arms around his neck, and answered before the tremor ended, because in this unclocked world, hesitation felt like the only unforgivable crime. The earth snapped, picturesquely timed lightning spiked the horizon, and someone's car alarm sang a new anthem for disorder. Some nights the tremors still arrive near 1514-1, as though the old rhythm lingers like muscle memory. When they do, I picture the ledger pages from my brokerage, each square a micro-territory once sold or stolen, and I feel a surprising tenderness for the market that raised me. Then I imagine Mariella's last sight, a ceiling trembling above her, and I'm grateful the map has been shredded. The city, unshackled from its stopwatch, continues to lurch and settle, teaching us that safety and certainty were never synonyms. We fill the intervals with whatever comes: hurried apologies, improvised midnight picnics, unplanned heroics. Crime still exists, but it gasps, off balance, often arriving too early or too late. Love exists too, and it doesn't wait for the drum roll. I keep one relic from the old regime, the wristwatch Fabian had on the night Mina confessed. It stopped during the amplifier's crash, frozen at 15:14:39. I don't wind it. It reminds me that every perfect second can hold imperfect acts, also that within that same second, someone might choose differently. A year after the dampers, the National Geological Service admitted the soil here is behaviorally anomalous, and the interventions can only moderate, never govern, the tremors. They proposed a new metric, the Flex Time Index, a scale not of magnitude, but of unpredictability. The mayor joked we should adopt it for election cycles. When I lecture at universities, students ask what to do when the ground moves. I tell them to brace the fragile, breathe, and speak quickly the words they've been hoarding, because certainty is just a quieter kind of chaos. I credit the quake for my fortune and my losses, for my first love and my darkest clients, but I don't miss its precision. Only clocks envy perfection. People are built for sway. One late evening as we walk home across the suspension bridge, the cables humming, Fabian wonders aloud if the tremors will ever stop entirely. I shrug. Maybe the earth keeps time the way we keep promises, breaking them to make better ones. He considers this, then kisses me, mid-stride, traffic swooshing underneath. No special minute, no scheduled romance, just two bodies adjusting to whatever song the tectonic band strikes. Beneath us, the ground flexes, subtle, uncertain, and the city's lights quiver like 1,000 mischievous fireflies. Nobody counts the seconds anymore. We just hold on, crime and love and all the crooked hopes in between, and let the world resettle itself however it pleases.